Hey. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Satsang on a beautiful Sunday afternoon or evening for many of you, and maybe even morning for some of you. I do actually have some people in Australia who check in very early in the morning. Uh, as always, I love to just preamble, uh, you know, in addition to my regular rambling. And I realize I need to put on the windscreen here. Quick second. The wind can pick up here in the afternoon. Shoop. There we go. Help a little bit with the sound gets kind of whacked. There we go. That's better. Yeah, this thing's actually getting a little old. I may have to replace it. Um, so you all tell me if you can hear me okay and everything's wonderful. Um, the sat part of satsang is in Sanskrit the word truth. It can also be sacred, holy, and also, interestingly enough, it's also the word for being, existence, true actual existence, which I just find absolutely fascinating. The phrase Sat Chit Ananda gets interpreted as being, consciousness, and bliss. And then Sat all by itself means truth, or Satcha. Satcha means truth, Satchavati means place of truth. Um, and oftentimes you'll hear that'll be one of the titles of a sage, Bhagavan Satcha kind of thing. What I find really fascinating about it is it's pointing to the very subtle but very profound truth that being is truth, existence is truth. To your existence is the truth. Now, that's really something to ponder because we always seek truth as some knowledge, right? As some important, significant event, or some bit we can. Oh, that's true. Looking for this objective truth outside of ourselves. But the fact of the matter is, what satsang and satcha and satchitananda point to is that the truth, that is the reality, the ultimate reality, the ultimate what is, that which actually is and is not an appearance of anything else, indivisible and irreducible, is your being. That's the what's the word? I mean, that's the criteria. To know yourself is to know the truth, because you are what is. And on a very practical level, just look at it for a moment. Everything that you perceive comes and goes. It's an appearance to you. We imagine we know the objective existence of it. This thing is, that tree is a tree and it lives out there, and as I mean, it's going to be there whether I'm here or not. Um, but that's purely speculation, because if you weren't here, there could be no tree. The the two have to be there simultaneously, an object and that which perceives it. And like a dream at night, it's very real. People, it feels very real. It's very, um, uh, the entire experience. It's emotional, it's physical, it's mental, all sorts of things going on, right? And yet we recognize that it's not real in the sense that it is not an objective experience. The dream doesn't live somewhere waiting for you to fall asleep and then show up so you can have the experience. It is being generated real time in this moment, which is why that term dream is used so much. People talking about consciousness and spirituality and reality and that sort of stuff. So what isn't a dream, right? I mean, the very fact that we're talking about a dream or an illusion, there's got to be something there, right? There's got to be something dreaming. There's got to be something that actually is not just a subjective appearance, is not just a thought, it's not an idea, it's not a concept. It actually is. And that word sat points to it, being. Because look at your whole life. What's the one thing that has been consistent throughout your entire life? The sense of being. It's the one thing that has been absolutely consistent the entire time. And without you, would there be any kind of life? Now, the purpose of satsang is to bring our attention so focused on that, the beingness, on that which actually exists, that we lose all sense of ourselves as some kind of object to be known or perceived. Like a dream at night, nothing you perceive, although it can be a great, really fun experience, it isn't real in the sense that it isn't objective. Right? Now that doesn't diminish it, right? This is really important to grasp, because people, oh, this is all a dream, as if that was some kind of diminishment of it. It doesn't diminish it in the slightest. The experiences you have are still very valid, aren't they? Still very fun, interesting, sometimes difficult. The whole gamut, the whole range of experience and feeling that the human being is capable of. So by recognizing that it is not real as in existing independently from your perception of it, doesn't diminish it in the slightest. As a matter of fact, true non-duality embraces it. Because when you see it for what it is not an objective experience that you're participating in, it is a subjective experience that is emanating from you. In fact, it is you. Just like in the dream at night, there are many different characters, but they're all you, right? There isn't actually somebody else in there talking to you, right? They're all you. The entire thing is coming from you. But it's really important to not just stop there. We have to probe this all the way to the depths. Because when that first happens, when that realization that there really is no way to tell if anything exists independently or objectively from you, that sense of me being a finite person in the world, right, is still there. And so it's almost like, oh, am I alone now? There's nobody else here? Is this all? Well, what am I? Is there a bunch of us walking around? We all don't, and we all have our own perception of things. It's really easy if you don't go all the way with this to get stuck in, I guess they would call that a solipsism, even a kind of madness, right? Narcissism, right, is that you don't see anything other than yourself. So you can't stop there. It's just a step inward, right, to find the actual you, the real you, because you can probably tell that idea, there's still a sense of a you. Remember, you're in the dream too, right? It's just not, you're not here and then you're watching everybody. You're in the dream too. There's feelings, all sorts of things. So there's a version of you, an image of you that's also in the dream. But if that whole thing begins to, kind of collapse to the vanishing point, right? What's left? Not a you that is an individualized form, but the universal you, the universal I, the one I am. So in all the meditations and exercises I do, it's always a withdrawing from every thought, emotion, and sensation, which is the sum total of experience. Not so that we make it go away or diminish it in some way, but so that we cease to identify with the characters and the events and the circumstances in the dream. And we begin to discover what is, what's really here. Okay, I'm here, I'm having a dream, right? Great, but I'm here, right? And I'm obviously not in the dream, because that too is another image appearing to me. So to whom is this appearing? Who is the ultimate witness? And as you move towards that, you can take nothing with you. You can take none of the old ideas or sense of identity or concepts. No human knowledge can can go past this point, right? At this point, you just take everything off, drop everything to your side, and just you. So the only thing left is you, what actually is. Now, don't be frightened of that. That doesn't mean the world's going to disappear and there's just going to be this big void. It doesn't work like that. It's all still there, right? We're not getting rid of experience. We're realizing that we are not in the experience. And that realization leads to the end of suffering. Because the suffering is being done by the one in the dream, not by the actual you that is witnessing the dream and the dreamer. Hopefully that didn't go by you too much. But so let me say hello to everybody and welcome. Sue, I'm all ready to hear about truth tonight. Good, me too. Thank you so much for all that you do for us listening. Oh, you're very welcome. Mary in Niagara Falls, love and appreciation. Cheryl in Pennsylvania. Hello, GP. Hello to Cheryl. Hello, Ava. Uh, namaste to you too. John Watson in Glasgow, Scotland. Good to have you, John. Sue A. IGP, looking forward to Satsang from New York. Where in New York? Where in New York are you, Sue? I've lived in a variety of places there. Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. Liza. Hello, Liza, from the East Coast of the US of A. John Sheehan in Ireland. Greetings to GP in the Sunday brunch. Oops, sorry. Clicked on a button. Dorte in Denmark. Dave and Elaine in Southeast England. Excited about this satsang, says Hen S. Did I pronounce that right? Hen? You're in Germany. Are you new? I'm not sure I recognize that name. Ursula in Portugal. Robert Goldberg in Nevada, USA. Rosalind, greetings from Ojai, California. Hi, Rosalind. Love Ojai. What a beautiful place. Sound is good, says Mary. Great. Hearing you fine, everyone says good. David in Los Angeles. Hey, David. Oh, David. Hey, good to see you. That David. David B. Robert, best sound and video ever. Yes, I think I finally got this down. I've got the extra special long life battery pack and and the like. So, so I do think I have it down. I monitor things. Channel's okay. I do get a little. I mean, pull the sound back a little bit. Try to cut out some of the wind. Sometimes it gets a bit loud and it breaks up. But is the sound okay, everybody? I guess it is. Yeah. I don't know why it's giving me a message that it's clipping. I just move it back a little bit. But I'm monitoring it to make sure the batteries last, and I've got extra batteries, and I'm trying to be a good producer. Let's see. Hello from Monterey. Hello, Alessandra. October Paul. Hey, peeps. Namaste. Wonderful people. Portland, Maine. Kuhulika. I love that name. I say that every time, but I really do. Namaste, and everyone from India. Here to soak in some good energies. Great. We'll all put it out for you. Good day from Penny. Hi, Penny. David says, hi, GP and everyone. Los Angeles. So happy to share in this online community. Isn't it great? Yeah, this is the positive side. This is the part of light of the media spreading light at the speed of light, whereas normally they spread darkness at the speed of light. Kukulika had a question. What is authenticity, and how can I express my authentic truth? Well, there's several levels to that. On one hand, when we're talking relatively, person to person, just being with somebody and saying and expressing yourself to somebody, there's a level of authenticity that just takes courage, right? So if you're in a relationship with somebody, it can be very hard to just say what you're feeling at the time, right? Which is expressing yourself authentically in a relationship. sometimes it's hard because we have all sorts of resistances. We don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Uh, we're worried about how they might react. There's a lot of editing going on in your head. And I'm not saying it's all bad. Just blurt it out because we have to be sensitive to others. We want to say things in a way, while we want them to be authentic and truthful for us, we want to say them in a way that isn't making somebody else wrong, placing blame, pushing something onto someone. Um, and at the same time, we want to be absolutely honest. And the more close the relationship is, the more important that is, because if that authenticity isn't there, neither is intimacy, and the relationship will not be satisfying, right, or end, right, if that kind of authenticity isn't there. So it's not an easy thing. It's not, well, this is my truth, and you blurt it out, right, without any regard how somebody else might respond to it. Um, there has to be more compassion in it than that, which means in a relationship, you have to cultivate that capacity to be able to express yourself clearly in an environment where it's safe to do so. Because sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you do have to hold back because it's not safe to express yourself. So as you can see, there's a lot that goes into it. Um, First off, be you must come to peace with your own truth. Right? First that, then finding the way to speak it. There are various kinds of techniques for when talking with people about difficult subjects. There's people who teach entire courses on it. But what it boils down to is always taking ownership for your own feelings. So when you say something, right, that is your truth, you say, when you do this, I feel like this, which is very different than saying you make me feel bad, right? Nobody makes you feel bad, right? People are just being who they are. And if you can take ownership for your reaction, you can negotiate the territory that brings harmony and intimacy again. Now, obviously, the highest authenticity is knowing who you really are. Because as long as it's mixed up, there's a sense of identity that isn't really fully you, something you're very identified with. You'll be speaking from the position of this identity. Right? You'll be reacting as that identity would react. You'd be saying things the way it would say it. You would treat the situation the way that identity would. But that identity isn't you. That is simply a learned behavior. And which is why this kind of non-dual inquiry is extremely practical and absolutely essential. Because as long as I'm acting out somebody that I'm not really, in other words, I'm unconsciously simply acting out my conditioning, which has not yet been scrutinized and looked at, um, there's always going to be conflict, right? There's always going to be something wrong. The ego is always going to be involved. It's always going to get its feelings hurt, right? The ego can't smell its own breath, right? So consciousness has to step in and truly examine your the sense of identity that is giving rise to whatever your current sense of authenticity is, right? And recognize that that sense of this is my truth, right? If it's held too doggedly, will lead to nothing but conflict, right? There's no position there for any kind of flexibility. But if you recognize that it can change, my position may be wrong, and be open to hearing, right, where it might be in an environment that's safe, you can get yourself to a different level. You can get yourself to a whole different dimension of authenticity. And again, the highest authenticity there is the self-knowledge of who you are. And who are you really? You are not your conditioning. You are way more than any particular form or character or pattern or programmed response could ever be. And recognizing that gives you dominion over those programmed responses. And 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 that naturally because of the nature of your true being, naturally opens you up for greater flexibility, for greater compassion. You don't hold on to a position. You allow that sense of authenticity, which is relative, to fluctuate, to respond. Right. So I can't emphasize enough. Some people think that non-dual inquiry is this intense wear funny clothes and do all these kinds of things, and that it takes you some esoteric place out in the middle of nowhere, right? It's not true. It's incredibly practical, right? It's a simple recognition that what you are is not what you believe yourself to be. In fact, it is so much more that it's beyond all concepts. There's no such thing as a concept of the infinite. It cannot be held in a concept. The moment you make a concept, you make an outline around it, and it's no longer infinite. That's why uh, the infinitude is emptiness. That's why I use that phrase. That's why the Buddha used that phrase. Because if it had any form at all, it wouldn't be infinite. The recognition of that immediately brings the wisdom that all forms are temporary. You can move from form to form without losing anything. And an enormous compassion arises to recognize that the vast majority of people you're going to meet think they're their conditioning and are stuck in that bubble. And they're suffering and they want to get out. So that's why this is not an esoteric inquiry. It's a highly practical one. It's an everyday kind of thing. Right? It's not, oh, enlightenment, and now I sit around in ochre robes and have people bring me flowers, right? Oh, were that only the case? but it's not, right? It's highly, highly practical, and immediately begins to integrate right into the life you're leading right now. It just begins to permeate and colonize the entire system. You aren't what you think you are. Right? And the more you discover that, the less you'll have to concern yourself with how to be authentic, how to express your authenticity, because it'll just happen naturally. The words will just come, the ideas will just come, because they're bubbling up from the absolute truth, which is as authentic as you can get. It's the real deal. So, does that help, Kuhulika? Andre, hello, sir. Hello to you. Barbro in Sweden. Hello, Barbro. October Paul. You make the dream seem so beautiful. Some modern neo-Advaitists make this experience seem so pointless. I needed to hear this. Yeah, it's just a misunderstanding. The neo-Advaitists are stuck in the absolute. They, it's really easy to try to get rid of all this, right? Explain all of this away. It's all an illusion, like it's a dream, right? But the dream still happens, right? Right? The experience is still there. To just explain something away does not provide a comprehensive view of reality. That's a nice, neat little thing, right? This doesn't matter. Material scientists do that all the time, right? I can't weigh and measure it, therefore it isn't real. Good. Boom. I can just completely eradicate everything that steps outside of that model. Right? Now, when you say something like it's so pointless, it is pointless within itself. I mean, really look at it. If you accept this model of existence, right, everything you do eventually leads to death. So what's the point, right? So if that's your model, it all becomes pointless, right? Or if this is all an illusion, it all becomes pointless, right? But what if what's an illusion is our beliefs about it and not it? I use the example oftentimes of the mirage in the desert, right? And you look off, you're thirsty, you're dying of thirst, right? And you look off in the distance and there's this beautiful Oh, there it is, the oasis, and there's, you know, people in skimpy bathing suits and sipping Mai Tais and the like by the water. And you start moving towards it. Well, the sand is there, right? The heat's there. The thirst is there, right? The sun is bearing down, the heat rising from the sand, creating distortion. That's all there. The mirage isn't. So to simply dismiss the entire thing is, uh, well, in some instances, irresponsible. In other instances, just naive. Right? What knowing that this is a dream does not diminish the value of it. But the value is not an infinite value, right? It's not this whole thing is leading to some great destiny and therefore it all has a point. No, that doesn't exist. There is no ultimate point to this except this moment. And so even significance and the point and meaning are not absolute, but they are relative, right? It has a lot of meaning to me that I'm able to sit here in this beautiful park with some equipment that's now functioning correctly, right? And speak about this. It has enormous meaning to me, right? But did it, 50 years ago? No. I mean, this opportunity didn't even exist. 10 years from now, or when this body falls away, will it? Right? But does that mean that this moment then is meaningless and I can just dismiss it? No. That is incredibly naive and actually destructive. Right? Um, sometimes, I'm standing in a long line, right? Right, to get into the grocery store because only so many are allowed right now. And I could see, God, this is pointless. I'm just standing here in this line. I could just get really bitter and angry about it. Or I could just, well, this is it. Right now, this is the whole meaning of my life to stand here. And then soak it up, taste it, taste the honey of that moment of just standing there. Instead of zooming into the, I've got to get in there and get my stuff and get out. And like, I'm forced to actually just kind of stand there by myself, right? Because I've got to keep my social distancing. So there's just this wonderful moment of just quiet. So I actually, when I see the long line getting into the grocery store, I go, oh, nice. It's just a moment. Right? But that meaning is whatever I give it. Right? The point of it is whatever I say it is. So it's true, there's no absolute point to anything. Just like there's no absolute meaning, there's no absolute purpose. None of it's absolute. But purpose exists, like like a theme of expression. Like the tree is a theme, and there's like how many different kinds of trees, and every species of trees is different. Every single individual one is is different. They all express the essence of the tree, right? And God knows, 1,000 years from now, completely different kinds of trees, all still trees expressing the essence of trees. Life is like a symphony, and you are a motif. And that motif, is forever playing itself, redefining itself, morphing itself, right? Everybody knows Beethoven's Fifth, right? Da 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 da, right? Those four notes, da 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 dum. But then, da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. Now, what's the actual theme? It's impossible to say. One of the beauties of that particular symphony is it was the first time in history somebody didn't start the symphony, boom, on the tonic note. Right? Da 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 dum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. Right? First time ever. Right? So when you do that, what's the theme? I don't know. All you hear are the variations. You don't actually hear what it is because it what it actually is unknowable. Only how it expresses itself. So purpose, meaning, identity, all of these things are simply not fixed, but forever manifesting in form. And the ultimate seeing is to recognize that the you that is being manifested in all of these different forms is itself empty, unknowable, infinite. Are you following that? This this is not this is not Neo Advaita. This is the real thing. right? Neo-Advaita is a place it's very easy to get stuck. It's very, 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 very seductive because it's true, but it's not the whole truth. It has to explain away things in order to position itself as the absolute truth. But you can't have an absolute without a relative. So the ultimate truth has to be transcendent of both absolute and relative. And by transcendent, I don't mean it gets rid of, it means it subsumes. It is beyond all opposites. It cannot be defined, and yet it is obviously real. It is the indivisible and irreducible, which can't be known as a thing because you'd have to outline it. Is that clear, October Paul, and everybody else for that matter? This is a different way uh, in which I express it, and I express it that way because I think it's true. And all the teachers that I say I recommend people listen to, they all say it this way too. That doesn't dismiss the absolute either. The absolute is the emptiness. But then what? The bodhisattva. The emptiness is form, form is emptiness. Two cannot be separated. That's the ultimate non-duality, is that nothing is two. Everything is not two. How's that? Snezalia. Hearing you fine in Serbia. Good to have you. And that's hey GP. Yeah, I'm new and loving it already. Great. Wonderful. Fantastic. I think you said you were in Germany? Right. Mary Sykes, have you any information on the Buddhist teaching on the 8 knots that surround the heart? No. Truthfully, I've never actually heard that. But, let's face it, there's a gazillion Buddhist teachings. Like Christianity, there's flavor after flavor after flavor. The only difference is the Buddhists don't make war. Um, but they do all have all sorts of things like that. But it is not the absolute teaching of the Buddha. Any teaching like that, and there's many of them, right? There's all sorts of esoteric teachings in Buddhism, some that relate to manifestation, and some that relate to healing, and some that relate to prophecy and extrasensory perception and that kind of stuff, parapsychology and the like. But when you read Buddhist sutras and what Buddha says, especially the Heart Sutra and the Lankavatara, you realize they are all temporary, they're conventional. They have a purpose, and that purpose is to meet a particular state of consciousness. And once that state of consciousness has absorbed that, it has transcended that particular teaching, it can go on to the next until the need for teaching completely disappears, which is the Sadguru, the ultimate teaching, which is yourself. Right? That you and the teaching are one. You are the teaching. Right? So ultimately, from the point of view of the inquiry, non-dual inquiry, including in the Buddhist path, a lot of that information isn't necessary anymore. It is at a point, and then it isn't any longer. Right? And for you, I would say it probably isn't. Yeah. Some of those things may be interesting. They may provide insights. But again, just remember they're temporary. They're a step on the path. They're not the path. Jesse's mom, right? Hi, Heather from Glenville. So good to be present with you and everyone today. Good to have you. Gulsin, I keep hoping I'm pronouncing that correct. Hello to you too. Patricia. Hello, Patricia. In Vancouver. John Sheehan. Is it the I am that is having the dream? Many thanks, GP. Yes and no. Okay. Oh boy. The self doesn't dream. The self is eternal awakeness. So the dreamer is in the dream. The absolute self, which is prior to all knowledge, prior to all what we might call even consciousness, even self awareness, right, doesn't even know that it is. Not in the sense that we normally think of it. Of course, the knowing and the being are actually one. It is simply knowingness itself and nothing known other than itself. Now, if that doesn't immediately click with you, don't spend any more time on it, okay? Right? Because I'm breaking this down. You can't actually break it down because it's timeless. Everything I'm about to say is actually simultaneous, but I'm bringing it down. So when I say prior to, I'm not talking about in time because there is no time there, right? The sense of I am arises in that which is. Now, a sense I am could not be there, right? unless unless there was something that was, something actually existed. Without that, there could not even be a sense that I exist. And so it's secondary from that, not in time, right? Because it's all one, right? So it's not like prior and then later it did this, right? It's only secondary because you can see that even the sense of being perceived, something was there prior to that. Something is there prior to that. So it is, it's kind of the order of being and not something has happened over time. That sense I am gives rise to the whole universe. That sense I am is the theme, as I mentioned, of the symphony of life, as I mentioned before. The da, 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 da. I am is the da 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 da. I am, right? So, so that sense I am, right, plays out everywhere. Right? It is the I principle. It is God. It is the creator of the universe. Not creator as an act of creation, act of will, I'm molding the clay. It's simply the self awareness pondering itself. And it creates many universes. Right? The universe you live in is not the same one I live in. We have the same essence, but the I am, it's like numberless points of perception, all looking at the same thing, but from a different angle. And that which is actually doing the seeing is one. Now, I don't want you to spend too much time pondering that, right? Because the mind can't grasp it. Because when I say the self, the pure self, the absolute, and then the level of the consciousness or I am, the sense I am, and we talk about creation and all the 10,000 things, right? The mind puts it into boxes, right? And it's all one thing, right? It is the theme of being playing out forever and ever and ever. So instead, what I always invite you to do is to simply go to the place where you are aware. The most subtle place we can put our attention is on the awareness of our own being, that sense of being. Now, at first, when you do that, it will feel very personal. It's my sense of being. But you'll notice that my sense of being is also being perceived. Right? The mission is to get all the way to the ultimate perceiver. And anything that can be perceived is not the ultimate perceiver. It's not perceiving. A thought does not perceive itself, right? Any more than this camera can photograph itself. That's the end of knowledge, the end of where the attention can go. It has to stop there, right? because anything attention can go to must report to the perceiver, and the perceiver. So what is perceived cannot be the perceiver. So attention ends. But you can see, it's self-evident that there is something imperceivable that is perceiving even the subtle sense I am. Right? We're just going all the way back. Instead of there's the absolute and then the sense I am, I'm bringing it to you, right? The sense I am that you are aware of, not some abstraction, your own actual direct experience. And the recognition that that last step I can't take. What is the ultimate perceiver? Well, it's you. Is that not you that is perceiving even the most subtle perception? Is it somebody else? It's you. And that's the final answer. Who is the ultimate? You. The you that's hearing my words right now. Appearing to that is a dreamer and a dream, right? To just keep focusing on your question, then the sense I am, and that sense I am manifested as someone dreaming must be perceived. It's not self-perceiving, is it? So when you're looking for a dreamer, like the I am, you're trying to turn the I am into a person, into a thing, into an entity, into a form, right? And you can't do it because it's perceived, right? So it's another perception that's happening. So the absolute I am is simply you. Just look at your own experience. Are you not perceiving? And are you not the ultimate perceiver? The mind could say, well, she's perceiving and he's perceiving and they're perceiving over there. Well, yeah, but as far as you're concerned, your own experience, not some imagined experience somebody else is having, are you not the ultimate perceiver? Doesn't it all come back to you? And hasn't it always been coming back to you? Every event of your life, if you're, in kindergarten, right? It was, the experience was totally different. The body was totally different. But was the experiencer actually any different? The dream was different. The dreamer was different. The 5-year-old or the 10-year-old. But were you? The real I that's actually the place that all of this is reporting to. The consciousness that where this is cognized. I think I'll leave it for that for right now. Let's see if anybody reacts to that. Many thanks. You're welcome, John. Jay is on the road today attending Satsang. Great. That must be your new job. Congratulations. October, Paul, says, oh no. Would you please talk a little bit about how some sages say there really is no liberation with gratitude? Yes. As I was just saying, that the absolute, in the absolute, there's no dreamer. There's no dream. Right? If there is liberation, there must be bondage, right? So if you have bondage, you have to have liberation. If you have liberation, you have to have bondage. But now you're looking at it from the relative point of view, and it's going to flow like this, right? Bondage, delusion, enlightenment, right? And so you see, this is very, very subtle, right? This is advanced teaching. This is not primer, or prima, as they say in England. You see, all opposites. The actual truth is transcendent of all opposites. Buddha even went so far as to say it neither exists nor does not exist, because that has to be transcendent of all opposites. So in the absolute state, there is no liberation. No one has been liberated. Nothing has ever actually even happened. No thing, no actual event, right? You could say the same thing about a dream, right? You had the experience, but nothing actually happened, right? Again, this doesn't diminish it. It doesn't make it unimportant. It doesn't make it insignificant. Okay? You're just seeing it correctly. Right? So the realization of liberation is to realize there never was one because you were never bound. There was only the belief in bondage. The belief in bondage falls away, right? And of course, from the point of view of the belief in bondage, there'd have to be a corresponding belief in liberation from the bondage. And in practical terms, that's the experience, the feeling of being liberated from bondage. But when you look at it closely, you realize I was liberated from the illusion of bondage, which means the liberation was an illusion. I was never bound in the first place. So how could I become liberated? Again, this is an advanced teaching, okay? It's very, very subtle. The way to truly understand it is to dive deeply into the place from which you are seeing, from where even this question arose. Go to the place before that question even arose. And does that have liberation or bondage in it? Isn't bondage and liberation also just a thought that have appeared? From where? If two sides of any coin can appear, right, they have to be two aspects of something which in itself is so perfectly unified that it can give rise to complete opposites because it possesses the qualities of complete opposites, but it itself is neither of them. Neither this nor that nor both nor neither, right? It isn't one or the other, it isn't both, and it isn't not them. It is beyond all categories. But because it's beyond all categories, it allows for all opposites. But the ultimate awakening, the ultimate realization is that is transcendent to all those opposites, which makes it unknowable in our normal subject object, discursive way we think of knowledge. It is not knowable. You just are it. That is your being. That is being itself. Being has no opposite, yet bondage can exist, right? That is, the form of bondage can be there, the form of liberation can be there. And they can be there because they draw their beingness from the same source, which cannot possibly be one or the other. Because if it's one or the other has to become, one becomes it, right? That's a form, that's a limit, and now for all eternity we are stuck within a form. Maybe a big form, the way we imagine God to be, but nonetheless, it's stuck in a form. Boy, you guys are asking deep questions today, right? Is that clear, October? Steve, can I call you Steve? Stephen? Um, uh, is that clear? Remember, all of this is from, you have to look at it from the point of perception. Right? For most people, I talk about liberation from conditioning, liberation from ignorance, liberation from identification with the false self, right? But ultimately, you see, even the identification and the liberation is also being perceived by something that is beyond liberation, right? Look, if the absolute needed liberating, we are screwed. Right? If the absolute could be bound, if the infinite could be bound, the universe would collapse into chaos. So the ultimate realization is that, like a dream, oh, both liberation and bondage, both delusion and enlightenment are equally false. And I simply am. It's beyond even the thought of freedom. It's beyond any concept at all. I mean, if all there is freedom, there's no opposite. Right? But in our minds, we have to juxtapose things. So we experience it as a bondage and as liberation. But in the absolute, neither exists. There's just you, pure, absolute being. And like I said, it's not a state you arrive at, and then there's nothing else. You see that this is the theme that is simultaneously playing out, manifesting itself, expressing itself in infinite forms throughout the entire universe. And without the play of opposites, there is no form. There could be no expression. There could be no manifestation. There could be no beauty, right? It would mean that the absolute would never experience itself at all. It would just be it. It's almost like a non-entity, like music without a song. Yeah, so what? That's why it's not two. It's not two. uh, how's that, October? Rosario, hello from Spain. Hello to you. A nice surprise to have you with us again. Thank you very much for your love with all of us. Uh, you guys are so easy to love. What's the problem? Yeah. Mary, is self an individuation of itself, such as there are many facets to a diamond, but still it is the diamond? Yes, yes, that is so. That's a way of looking at it. But remember, these are metaphors, right? Or similes. It's like the diamond, so that we can point towards that which cannot be seen, right? The ultimate which cannot be seen, right? So yes, you see all the facets of a diamond, right? But what is a diamond a facet of? It too is a facet of something more fundamental. It's like carbon and coal and pressure and all that make that whole little package of functioning that creates this diamond, and add in the artist who's cutting it just such a way so all of the facets show up, because it doesn't do that by itself. It requires the hands of the craftsman to to bring the whole thing to life. Now look at that entire thing. Where did that arise from? What is that an aspect of? Remember, everything you experience is an appearance of something else. So everything. It's kind of like, I was using trees before, right? How many different kinds of trees are there, right? And how many species and subspecies, right? I mean, uncountable. And then of each individual species, there's all these other variations, right? So you could take the theme of the tree, right? But then, and there's this essential and essence of tree. I mean, this is essential forms, going back to Aristotle, right? Which is kind of like it. But then, what is the tree? Right? The tree is just an element. We could talk about species and subspecies, genus, and all that kind of stuff, right? When we isolate the tree all by itself, but then you stand back and you have to see the tree within the whole context of the existence, the ground and the sky and the air and the makeup of the air and the heat and the sun. Put all that together. Wait, okay. Here's another thing, because the tree itself, you can break it down into the bark and each one of the piece parts, and it all comes into this. Now, if I stop at the tree, right, I say, oh, okay, I understand this, but you can't. You have to keep going. No, there's this entire environment in which the tree is. What's that? Right? Right? What is it that gives rise to that? What's the subspecies or substratum of that? And you just keep going. Everything is a facet of something else until there must be a starting point, that from which everything arises, that of which everything is a facet. That must be absolutely universal. It cannot just be like a tree, because since absolutely everything arises from it, it must be the essence of absolutely everything. That which is, right? Which is you. This is the wonder. Oh wow! And wait a minute, it's me? Yeah, it's you. You are the essence. You are the substratum. The I is the universe. It is the essence of the universe. Everything is a manifestation, a facet of I. Boy, we're really going some places today, aren't we? This is great. Right? So is that getting clear? Right? On one level, you can actually, and it's a beautiful metaphor. It's there's many facets in one diamond, right? And you look at it from a whole bunch of different dimensions. You see all different kinds of aspects of it, facets of it, and yet it is essentially one. It's a beautiful metaphor pointing to the ultimate one, which is not something you can examine. It is that which is looking. It is the consciousness to which it is appearing. It is an aspect of that. And again, who's that? I will not answer that for you this time. Gulsin, can you please talk about forgiveness a bit? Why is it difficult to forgive sometimes? Uh, the ultimate meaning of forgiveness is not pardon, letting him off the hook. The actual word that Christ used, at least in a couple of the translations that I've read, uh, uh, was that word forgiveness. Over the years, distorted by the church, basically, it came to mean pardon, right? You're a sinner, right? Original sin, everything you do, no matter what you do, there's no way out of it, right? You deserve to be punished for eternity, but I'm such a great loving God, I'm going to let you off the hook. I'm going to pardon you. I'm going to commute your sentence, even though you're guilty as hell. Aren't I wonderful? That's not actually the meaning that of the word in the way Christ used it. The meaning as he used it was to be found innocent, to be vindicated of all wrongdoing. If you come to understand that everything bad, ugly, nasty, dishonest, even evil and horrible, every act of that character arises out of unconsciousness, then forgiveness becomes absolutely easy. That's why Christ on the cross, Father, forgive them. Find them not guilty. They don't know what they're doing. They're unconscious. They're acting out. They have no clue. They're robots programmed to act in a certain way. They have no control over it. It isn't an act of will. It isn't even a choice. There's no consciousness there. And Christ represented consciousness, true awareness, the true God, not the God of the Jewish people, Yahweh, the warrior God, but the God of love. The church put them all together and made the ridiculous theology that they eventually came up with. But that's not it. He was not. He was when Christ used the word God. He was not referring to Yahweh. In fact, he even once told the Pharisees, "You worship your God, the devil." Yeah, they liked that a lot. Yeah, they were very happy to hear that. Right? So it's a completely different version. Christ represents true consciousness. He is the light, right? And the other is darkness or ignorance or delusion. When you see that, even when somebody is hurting them, you can say, find them not guilty. They don't know what they're doing. They aren't guilty. They have no idea what they're doing. Right? And if consciousness emerges, it'll stop. That kind of behavior can only survive in the dark. Evil can only live in the dark. Right? And by darkness, I mean ignorance. It is ignorant of itself. They're to be pitied. They're to be prayed for. So I said, pray for those who despitefully use you and persecute you for my name's sake, for the sake of truth, consciousness, the true Christ, the true Savior, the true deliverer, the true anointed one, which the word Christ means. when you see it that way, forgiveness is a piece of cake. If I've got somebody's done something to me, right, and, right, and I see them as someone who has, willfully inflicted something on me, forgiveness is impossible. You can't do it. Now, it is possible to get to a place of equanimity where you can just, you just kind of let go. You recognize that, you holding on to animosity or anything towards it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't help you in the slightest. Nobody's being benefited, and you just let it go. That's a better place than, holding a grudge or a vendetta, right? But it it won't ultimately set you free. The ultimate forgiveness is to realize there's nobody there to forgive. You know, if a robot commits a crime, what's there to forgive? And that's exactly what it is. That kind of seeing brings you to the place where you realize that there's nothing but original, pure innocence. That that's all there really is. Right? But it also makes you wise. When somebody's unconscious, you know exactly what they're going to be. You stay out of their way, right? I don't swim with sharks. They'll eat me, right? And I'm not going to pray for deliverance, and I'm not going to try to convert them to veganism, right? It's a waste of time. It's a shark. That's what they do, right? So somebody who is locked in unconsciousness like that, I keep pulling on my thing here, that's what they're going to do. Knowing that, let you to forgive them, and also avoid any kind of mishap. So Christ said, "Be wiser than serpents and harmless as doves." He's the most perfect example of it, right? In all of history, the most glorious example of doing just that. He didn't even defend himself with Pilate. Why? Why? Right? It was pointless. Right? So does that help, Gulsin? Does that make sense to you? I love that subject. Yeah, it's such a powerful one. See what my battery's doing on this side. Yeah, I may have to. Yeah, I think we're good. Dim this a little bit. Save some battery. Battery good. Battery great. Yes. Wind's died down a little bit. So I'm going to push the volume a touch. Wonderful. Yay. Technology is holding up for me today. Rosario, I was not aware it is Sunday. Yes. The COVID has changed time in my life. Nothing to do but being aware of the situation. Yes. Sunday's made up, right? It's useful, right? So we all know show up, right? Let's all show up at some place at the same time. It's useful, but it's not real, right? It's man-made. It's a mental structure, to kind of divide things up to help us organize, but it's not real. There's no Sunday or Monday. Right? There's just night follows day, follows night, follows day, follows night, follows day, and the endless cycle of Shiva's wheel. And we can do anything we want with it. We can call it anything we want. We can divide it any way we like, right? There's nothing special about these. It just happen to work out in a particular way. I know people do say there's magic number and, what is it? Spiritual geometry. I forget what it's called. But those are all projections of the mind. The actual reality, it just is this. What is it? It's this. I know that's not very satisfying to the mind, right? Because it wants to label and everything. But what is it? It's now. Yeah, that we know. Everything else, convention, right? Useful convention, and nothing more. The moment we take a convention to be an absolute truth, man, we are in trouble. We have gotten stuck. We're in a position now. But it's not real. It was made up. And when that is realized, we begin to flow. And humanity can once again learn to be harmonious and loving. And we'll have no wars over some kind of ideology, which is idiot. idiocracy, actually. Idiocy. Uh, Mary says, blessings to you. Rosario, thank you, says Rosario. Sarah, hello, 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 hello. Just missed it again. Um, da, 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 da. I'm late. Sarah from France, in Berlin, France. The French in Berlin, although she's originally from Texas, which is really great. Sue says, so it's consciousness experiencing itself. What else could it be? Could something not that's not conscious experience itself? What else could it be? Can anything other than awareness be aware? Can anything other than consciousness be conscious? So it must be consciousness experiencing itself. But again, I want to bring home the most important point. When we speak of consciousness, pure awareness, and that sort of thing, it can get almost clinical, right? It's you. Consciousness as an idea means nothing. But when consciousness is myself, it means everything. I am conscious of myself. I am the self. I am the absolute. Not the I as the mind defines it. That's just an image in the mind and doesn't have any reality to it. It's just a thought. But that which is aware of the thought isn't just a thought, right? It's real. And what's that it? You. Let the I return back home to its source, which is the ultimate absolute reality. The I that actually is. That which is. It is not an appearance of something else. Anything that you experience is an appearance of something else. What's that something else? You. Consciousness is another word for you, just like I, me, GP, or Bob, or whatever. It's another word for that which is consciousness. Are you not aware of yourself? That's it. That's the great secret. That's the thing we keep going by. We keep looking for something else. But are you not consciousness? You're conscious of my words? You must be. It can't be anything else, right? This camera isn't aware of my picture. This microphone isn't aware of my words. You are. So you are the awareness. Yes, definitely, says October Paul. Thank you so much. Very welcome. Love your answer to October Paul. Good. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. David Elaine, in light of what you said earlier, that's why Leo Hartong's excellent book on non-duality is called Awakening to the Dream, not Awakening from the Dream. Yes, very good. The dream continues after awakening. Of course, you're awake in the dream. Thank God it continues, otherwise there'd be no teachers pointing. But now it's recognized as dream. Yes, it is no longer dream. It is myself. It is experience. Right? It's no longer samsara. It's nirvana. Right? Nirvana and samsara are the same thing. They're two different views of the same thing. Viewed as an objective existence, it's samsara. Viewed as the reflection of myself, it's nirvana. It's the same thing, right? It's the snake and the rope, right? It's not a rope. It's not a snake. It's a rope. It still appears as a snake. I mean, the sun does still appear to be moving across the sky. We appear to be sitting still, and it's moving, right? It's easy to see how in the West, this never actually happened in the East. They didn't make that mistake. We in the West, we pat ourselves on the back how smart we are. We finally figured it out. It's pretty funny. West is so arrogant. Anyway, but just because now we know that that's an illusion, right, doesn't mean it suddenly stopped happening, right? It's just our perception got corrected. So we're no longer living the illusion, which we were, right? For many years, we were living that delusion. And it had its effect and on it. I mean, that's rather innocuous. Just couldn't make a decent calendar. But other illusions are far more. The illusion of being a person is an illusion. There is no person, right? You are consciousness. Person is person is just something that is perceived. And mistaking the perception as something objective to you is the illusion. Right? The perception itself is not the illusion any more than the sun is. The interpretation and what we attribute to it as truth is the illusion, not the perception. So now the perception is there, the illusion's gone, and now I see the tree. But the tree now is not just a material structure out there going through a thing. The tree is now the mystery and wonder of consciousness taking form. I keep staring at the tree while I'm talking about it because it's entrancing when you see what it actually is. Right? It's not just this funny structure that happened arbitrarily. It is a spontaneous arising, giving life and expression to consciousness. Right? And so the one who was sleeping is also awoken from. The guy in the dream doesn't wake up. Right? You wake up from to the dream. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. You see the entirety of the dream. And the moment you see it as a dream, it's not a dream anymore. It's the beauty of perception. It's consciousness seeing. Goes dead. Yes. Okay. How long is the sound gone for? Hold on. Okay. You should be able to hear me again. Scroll down to the bottom. That's it. You're back. Sound over here. Connected. Okay. Bit loud. Pull it down a bit. Yay. Okay, we're back, I think. Oh, what was the last thing I was saying? I don't. I can't really tell how far off I am, because I didn't notice it. I got no indication of it. Um, I hate things that work with batteries. I wish I could get everything rechargeable, but some things I can't. Oh, well, let's see. Leo, every word that comes here rings true. Mary, thank you for these. Let's see. See if somebody's going to tell me what sound is out for about an hour. Oh, Daryl. That's not fair. No, if you all saw Daryl's chat there, so it was up for about an hour. That would freak me out, right? That means you all sat there and not told me. About 15 minutes? Are you serious? Oh my god. Is that true? 15 minutes? Tell me it's not true. Somebody tell me it's not true. Even if it is. Oh boy. Let me break some ice. Hey G, do you remember your past life? No. I have. Yeah, I have, but um yeah, a couple of things have popped up. Past life stuff. You just never really know. I think the last question was how oneself was created. Okay, that wasn't that far back. Where was that? Let's see if I can find it. Going all the way back. Um, I'm back. Perfect gentleman. Love your answers. Oh, that was Penny, right? Where's Penny? Where's Penny? I'm just gonna have to pick up and. Is there ever a landing into the starting point? Only in imagination. Right? You have to leave the starting point in order to land back there. But the coming and going is an illusion. That's the dream. Right? But the perceiving of the dream, um, that didn't start and stop, did it? The dream did, but perceiving did. Hmm. Sue says, "Thank you for your words of wisdom on forgiveness. I needed that." Yeah, I did too. Tesco too. Didn't say hi to you before. Perfect gentleman, you're back. Gulsin said hello. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I missed that. I gotta check batteries too. Oh, frustrating. Technology is frustrating. There's where the sound went out. Um, Dale, still there. Andre, hey G, can another word for enlightenment be alignment? Just aligning concepts with the actuality of them? No. Alignment happens afterwards. Right? Alignment is what happens to the to the relationship to life and relationship to experience after realization has begun to occur. Right? I don't even like to say it has occurred. I don't like to turn it into an all or nothing kind of thing. Right? Um, Once that happens, there's a beautiful adjustment that begins to take place, because if I'm no longer identified with the thoughts and feelings and emotions, um, there's nothing holding them in place. And if my sense of I or identity has now returned to its source, and I'm increasingly clear that I am that which is viewing and not which is viewed, that sense of I, right, will begin to permeate the whole system. All thoughts, feelings, and emotions will begin to organize around it. That's the alignment. That's what you could call alignment or integration or colonization, or it's it's realization moving into the heart and then expanding out into the life. Right. It, it, to be precise, enlightenment or awakening or realization is the realization of who you actually are. Pure conscious being, pure awareness, being itself, not being anything in particular, but just being yourself and yourself alone. I just am. And the I am never has anything after it. That's the complete sentence. I am, full stop. Anything else after that is a limitation, is a confining of I am. Right? Once that's seen, everything after that becomes an experience, but not an identity. Right? That sense of I just am, not anything knowable, conceivable, perceivable, just the sense of pure being, right? That um, that automatically begins to bring everything into alignment with it. Right? So you got to be clear, right? That the enlightenment is the realization of who you really are, and that realization then has an impact on the rest, because everything else is held in place by the idea of who you think you are. And your life changes as the sense of identity changes. But when you finally see that all identities are just an identity and not you, life now begins to conform itself to that. That's what you would see as alignment. Mm. Patricia says, it's me. That's the part I have most difficulty with. Consciousness is another word for me, looking for something else better than me due to my identity with my thoughts as big as me, big habits. But even the identification with all of those thoughts, the big habit, is that not being perceived by consciousness? That you are consciousness is not something the mind is going to agree with, right? It will eventually just kind of give up the argument, but it'll never fully go along with it. It just dissipates in authority, and that whole energy just isn't there anymore. You can feel in your heart that when I say that, you know it's true. Just stay with that. That's all. Don't try to force it. Don't try to, you know, don't turn it into a, you know, meditating so hard that, basically your veins are popping out of your neck. Uh, ah, that feels true. And then just sink into, have fun exploring the simple fact that no matter what you experience, consciousness has to be there to experience. So your attention naturally just goes from the experiencing to the experiencer, which you can't actually see as an experience because you're not an experience that you can have. You're that which is having the experience. And then you're just sinking more deeply every moment into this pure awareness. And it becomes this effortless thing. Don't try to make it happen. Don't try to be enlightened. I did that too. Himank says, LOG wanted your opinion on past life regressions. Now you guys got me checking the battery constantly, right? I'm looking at all batteries at all times, which I should have been doing all along. What wanted your opinion on past life regression therapy? Um, can be useful. Uh, some people have gotten a lot out of it. I think a lot of people have done it and gotten really attached. You know, it's always kind of funny to me that people have these past life experiences and the like, and they were like somebody famous, right? Nobody does a past life regression and discover they were basically a meaningless serf who didn't live very long for 18 lifetimes in a row. We don't want to hear about that. I was Mary Magdalene, or I was the Queen of England, or something. Um, it's legitimate in the sense that there are energies that are influencing this life that you're experiencing now that did not originate in these lives. I've had, in doing processing with EFT and interreconciliation, kind of the stuff that I do when I work with people, I have had past life experiences come up. Clearly, past life experiences for myself and for others. And I can sense when a particular energy is active in somebody's life, whether it originated in this life or not. Right? Now, there's really no way, almost no way, to truly verify, right, whether or not the experience you had in the regression, right, actually happened, at some point in time. Right? The good news is it doesn't matter, right? Whether it was something that happened, or whether this is simply the imagery that the nervous system is using to give you a clue, right, about the nature of a particular problem or stuck energy. This is how, this is part of the energy moving, is that this story begins to unfold itself. And right, does it matter whether it actually happened or not? Absolutely not. Right? Because whether it happened or not, even if it did happen, it's not happening now. And so the nervous system is simply, or the energy system, it's really more primal than the nervous system, is using these images to release the energy and perhaps to communicate something to you, right? So I don't dismiss it, right? I don't practice it. I find it happens spontaneously when it is needed. But the way I look at it is, if something needs to come out, I just trust the energy and our natural, natural proclivity to gravitate towards health and freedom and the end of suffering. That whatever whatever the energy system presents to me, I accept as legitimate. But just like I don't try to prove the literal history of the Bible, I don't try to prove the literal history of a past life regression, because the meaning of it has nothing to do whether it's historically accurate or not. Right? The meaning is in the meaning, right? It's in whatever it is that's trying to take place at the time. So I don't emphasize it as this is you should do this. I say to people, if you're drawn to it, do it. But don't, like everything else, don't turn it into the be all and end all. Don't turn it into a thing, right? It may be something useful for a moment, doesn't mean it's useful for all time. It may work now, it doesn't mean it's always going to work. Um, and eventually, we want to transcend all that life stuff, because who you really are, right, was there, right? This life, previous life, I don't care how many lives you go back, you were there, right? The consciousness that was aware of that life is exactly the same consciousness that is aware of this life, right? Knowing that consciousness is the end of all past. It's the end of karma, because it didn't incarnate, it experienced different lives, right? You were sitting in another life just like you are now, a different set of thoughts, a different body, different experience, different everything. But the essential consciousness that was aware of it is the same. That's the timeless you. And when you step out of time, you step out of karma. The game is over. So, this is satsang. So I'm always pointing back to what is the truth, the sat being. No sound, no sound, no sound, no sound, no sound. Finally getting down to the place where there's no sound. Oh my God. During what went off during your question. Oh boy. Oh no. Sound, a metaphor, ability to hear. Sound, 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 sound. No sound, no sound, no sound, no sound. Silence is the highest teaching. That's right. Yes. Being enforced on me, and now I'm keep checking it. Okay. I forgot to check the battery, to change the batteries in the broadcast in my wireless device here. Sooner or later, I wish I knew lip reading. That's true. I should get. I should get. We should get. I'll have that part closed captioned. Just sitting here loving this man who's such a dedicated. Thank you, Patricia. If he would just look. Yeah, I do get absorbed in what I'm doing. Waiting in line in the supermarket. Hey, Joanna. Oh, all this wisdom, we're missing it. Oh, there's plenty of wisdom. There's plenty of wisdom. Too many questions before he sees this. Love it. Silent seeing. What are we at here? 5%. Okay. This is it. You're back. No sound. Oh, no sound. Now it's okay. Sound was out. All right. Super Chan, you guys stayed with me. How wonderful. Okay, David and Elaine, question answer. Awakening to the dream as this went out. All right, what's the questions now? Because what I'm going to do right now is a little preemptive strike. Let me find my other. Where are you? Hook up my. Yes, got that one. Grab another cable here for my computer. Hope I didn't lose it. Oh, there it is. Oh no, that's not it. Oh. There's that one, there's that one, there's that one, there's that one, there's that one. Oh, this is a frustrating day. It's that one. Where is there? There you are. I knew it was here somewhere. Right. Just to make sure, so we can go longer because I didn't have enough time. I am now going to dip into my other resources. So one quick second while I make a little technological change here to juice up the computer. It'll be just a second. Mute. You guys are just so good to me. You're so patient. Now there's going to be more wind, though. Anyway, we'll do what we can do. Ah, super chat not working. I don't know. They were explaining it's a dream. The dream. Right. I have no idea where I was, so let's just keep going. Hi, G. I had a brief experience of feeling what I can only describe as emptiness, nothing, which was a little frightening. Do you have any explanation? Thank you. It's frightening to the mind, um, it's simply because you're not used to it, right? Um, Remember, your mind, the whole way our minds work and thought, and the normal way in which we in which we interact and know things, right, cannot deal with nothingness, with emptiness. Can't deal with unknowing. It's got to have something to hold on to. So when you experience yourself as emptiness, and this is important, you didn't have an experience of emptiness. You're experiencing yourself, which is emptiness. Emptiness is not a state that you get into. It is actually you. You are the emptiness. That is your infinite nature. The infinite can only be experienced as emptiness. It can't be a thing, because if it's a thing, it's not infinite, right? So it feels like empty, nothing, void, but in fact, it is the infinite potential for everything. Now, but the mind, without having some object it can hold on to, right, it gets uncomfortable. Why? Because without an object, there's no ego. It is the threat to the ego. The ego, it must identify itself as a thing. And the experience of your no thingness, therefore, is a direct threat. And you'll feel it as fear, because the whole body has been identified with and oriented around this sense of being a person, right? And if that dissolves, this happens. The whole nervous system's going, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah, right? Because you've just pulled the rug out from underneath it. It's okay, right? That feeling of fear that arose, right? That being frightened, was that also not being observed? Was it also not being perceived by that very emptiness? And there were a bunch of thoughts, oh, this is frightening, right? I need to get out of that. But no matter what the form the thought takes, whatever it looks like, is it not being perceived by you? There's the distance, right? You're not frightened. You are the pure enlightened witness of the feelings and thoughts of being frightened. See that, and they won't touch you anymore. And you'll just let the nervous system do what it needs to do. It'll adjust. It'll it will eventually just begin to migrate more and more towards you, because you're the safe place. You're the actual substance. You're the authority. You're the real you. And your whole life will just begin to align with that, I've as I've said in other uh, previously, right? Talking about the alignment. Right? Everything will eventually align with it. Right? But can there be fear in pure emptiness? That is, can the emptiness itself feel fear? Or is it just something that arises in consciousness and then disappears? Really look. There's a thunderstorm in the sky. Is the sky affected? Does the sky go, oh no, a thunderstorm? Or is it just something that happens and then it goes away? And when it does go away, does it even leave a trace? That emptiness is your being. And it can't be intimidated. Space is not intimidated by that which is in it. And without that space, there couldn't be anything at all. Does that help? I guess listening to GP made me realize it was okay. Oh, had that too. It seems foreign. Not so much now. Yeah, good. Same thing about that feeling of emptiness. Yes, it can feel kind of overwhelming at first because we're expecting angels and and, and dancing girls or guys, whatever your preference is. Um, and in fact, there's just this emptiness. But also notice that that's peace. That emptiness is peace. As long as there's something there, it's like waves on the ocean. It's right. But eventually you'll see that even the waves on the ocean, they don't really touch the ocean. They're just a part of the ocean. And that peace permeates everything. The peace is never disturbed. Things arise and they subside in the peace. Ava says, love your explanation concerning so-called past life experiences. Whatever they were, I was and I am the same, I to whom it appeared. Yes, that's exactly the case. Yeah. When we realize, when we become more interested in that which has been absolutely continuous the entire time than the various experiences or dreams that it has had, you're on the road to awakening. Let's maybe double check the sound again. Test, yes, good. Drum lessons from home. Your audience is getting larger. Awesome, G. I'll be in on that Satsang. Love you. Love you too, buddy. I got 2 more hours to my destination, but 0 to who I am, says Jay. Yes. To quote Nisargadatta, having never left the house, you're asking for the way home. Notice we have this assumption that we are something else, a seeker trying to get to awakening. But even the seeker and all of the seeking are being viewed. From where? And that place from which you are viewing, have you ever actually left that? This is so critical to see, right? Have you ever not been seeing? Have you ever not been experiencing? Has that ever not been there? You realize that's home. That's the home you've never left. You've always been there. But in our imagination, we think of all sorts of different things. We go to all sorts of different places, and we're seeking our way back home. But that one who is seeking the way back home is just something else being experienced by home. Right? Because the place of perception is you. The place from which you're perceiving has never changed. What you are looking for is where you are looking from. So even the seeking and the seeker are the dream. And even that moment of awakening, the great experience, however that story might unfold for you, it's the personal realization. It too is in the dream. Hi, Johanna. And did I see Jasmine? Hi, Jasmine. Good to see you. David and Elaine said you're probably at the end of our question, G, as you had covered it so comprehensively. Many wonderful answers to the questions again today, but loved the beautiful answer to John Sheehan's question about the I am and the dreamer. Many thanks. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's very, very subtle, um, and I take such painstaking, uh, methodical slowness to it, because it's so easy for the mind to misinterpret, to categorize. Because remember, the mind cannot see the union, cannot see the singularity. It cannot see the wholeness, right? Because the wholeness is empty. When you have just one, there's nothing else to compare it to, which means now the mind has just gone absolutely mute. There's nothing for it to do. The pure experience of being is is beyond mind, and yet you are that. You are that, and you are experiencing all the time, but you are not an experience. You cannot be experienced. You are not an event in time, because that's all an experience is. It wasn't there, something happened, it endured for a while, it stopped. That's an experience. Beginning, middle, end, nice. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, very nice, there it is. But to whom did that appear? Who noticed the beginning? Who noticed the absence before it started and the absence when it finished? Who noticed the duration? That can't be an experience. The ultimate experiencer must be timeless and self-existent. It must be what is. You are that. So, maybe my little 15-minute outage there. Um, Maybe the silence answered everybody's questions, because normally I've got more questions waiting. So either everybody got frustrated, or uh, uh, the silence just did its work. So I'm happy to redo any of the questions that you may have asked that I did not answer because of the power outage or whatever it was that happened that I didn't notice. Um, if you still want to ask them, and I know there's a little delay, so I'll give it a minute. Otherwise, this will be the shortest satsang I've done in quite a while. And I apologize for that. Boy, I think I've got it all. Isn't this life, though? Right? I think I've just got it all down now. This is it. Boom. We're going to get everything there. No mistakes. Nothing's going to happen. And boom. It got me. Oh, Suzanne, would you be able to elaborate on what might follow a realization at the intellectual level, followed by increasing time spent in non-duality, but punctured by seemingly more severe separateness? Yeah, I can do that. Well, every realization is not a realization, it is the realization. Okay? If the sky is overcast and you can't see it, and a little opening happens, right? It's not a sky, right? It is the sky, right? You're just seeing a little flash of it, right? The aperture opened for a second, and then closed down. But the sky remains the same, right? So first realize that it isn't a realization, it is the realization. It is always the realization, right? And it became conscious for that moment. And then what happened? The clouds went back over it. Now, what are the clouds? Thoughts, beliefs, assumptions, memories, associations, conditioning, patterns, all of that. Those are the clouds, right? And the being punctured by seemingly more severe separateness is going to be exacerbated. When there's a realization of who you actually are, right, there can be quite a dramatic reaction by the mind, the nervous system, and all that, right? That that reasserts itself because you've just destabilized your entire nervous system, right? You've just had an insight that has punctured the sense of identity that has been dominant within this energy system, within your nervous system, for your whole life, right? That introduces an instability, and the system's going to want to hold on to what it knows. Right? A lot of people experience that, and they think, "Oh my God, I lost it. I need another retreat. I need another book, or something like that." And it's a misunderstanding of what has happened. Right? The insight is the reality, and it has now shined light on the unreality. And that is causing an upheaval because our life, they gravitate around things. We hold on to things. This keeps me safe. And all of a sudden, somebody tells me the thing that I think is keeping me safe is actually causing me harm, right? It causes an upheaval. The important thing is don't make a big deal out of it, right? Don't think you lost it. Don't see it as being, I had a realization and now I don't. That I isn't real. There was a moment where there was clarity, right? That's you. That's always been you. Now, that in that moment, all of this stuff had gone away. All of the normal the normal stuff, right, that fills up our field of perception, quieted for a second. It was just you. That's what you call clarity. But now, the seeing of that clarity, which is the absence of all those other things, right? That which is seeing it, is it any different than that which is seeing all the noise and the confusion? Right? That's the same, whether it's total chaos or it's total peace. That remains the same. That's where you put your attention. That's where you lay your roots. Right? It isn't about what kind of experience you're having, because for a while that will fluctuate. Old conditioned patterns will arise. Right? And if you realize that the only way they can arise is that the pure consciousness is there for which they can arise, the identification with them stops. And the end result is they lose their authority. They lose their authority, it means they lose your attention, they lose their energy, and they will eventually dissipate. You just have to know where you are, who's doing the looking. Right? You are always on this side of the lens. You're never on that side of the lens. So no matter whether it's beauty and peace or chaos and ugliness, right? The perceiving itself remains absolutely the same. That's where you lay your roots. Is that whoa? Is that good, Suzanne? Right? And then just continue with your inquiry. Just continue inquiring into your own non-dual nature. Right? And the non-dual nature simply means you can't perceive yourself. You just are. Right? You are not. You are not what is experienced. You are the pure experiencer, which cannot be perceived. That's who you are. Just stay with that. The rest will take care of itself. I promise. David Lane, apology is not necessary, Jiva. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to us. Thank you. Thank you. Agreed, David Lane, says Daryl. Elaine. Elaine. Sorry. What? Got there in the end, Daryl. John, it's one of the deepest satsangs so far. Feels like the other shore is rapidly approaching. Yeah. And here's the great wonder. You get to the other shore and you look around and go, wait a minute. This is where I left from. There is no other shore. This is the shore. We only imagined ourselves, right? You could think of the self having itself an imaginary journey. It was never in danger. It was never at risk. It never left anywhere. It never went anywhere. You have always been here, and you always will be. Tesco 2. Once genie is out, it's impossible to put it back. Amen. once you get awakening, realization, you said, yes, it is. It's impossible to go back no matter what. Explain a bit on this. Um, yeah, once something has been seen, even if in the next, you know, let's say, you're looking at something through and you can't see. There's this haze in front of your eyes. You can't see anything. And then all of a sudden, for just a second, it clears, boom, and then comes back again. Can you forget what you've seen? It may even get kind of dim, but can you ever forget that you saw? That you can't. It's there for good, right? There's no coming back from that. And that recognition that I saw, right, will permeate and transform everything else. That's a I think it's the best way to to put it. You don't get realization. If you get something, you can lose it, right? It's really important to pay very close attention to these terms because they have meaning built into them. Oh, I got realization. Somebody once asked Buddha, "Well, have you attained? Have you attained?" And he said, "I cannot say that I have attained because I have attained." For most, they're kind of what? But I think you can see, right? It's that kind of paradox because language is dualistic by nature. So we're using a dualistic term to describe that which is beyond all terms, right? So the best we can say is pointing. We're pointing at something that cannot be directly described and cannot be experienced. Sorry, just had to make a shift in cameras. um, so where was I? Yes. More technology stuff. Oh my. So yes, once the genie is out, there's nothing you can do. Let me move this over to be in front. Yeah. Yeah. Once the genie is out, there's nothing left you can do. Once you may even forget what you saw, but you will never forget that you did see. That is there. And the reason it's there is because it connects up with the reality, which is you've never been anywhere else. That is the recognition that actually takes place. It doesn't matter what you might have seen, right? There's something much deeper that's happened that is beyond the seeing and not seeing. Oz said, "Thank you. Yes, good. More questions coming. I'm back to the plain old way of doing things. All my high-tech stuff. Can you possibly talk about your realization enlightenment, Chi, and the changes it made in your life? Thank you for your genuine dedication to your satsangs." It's kind of a long story because my experience was, not the storybook one, right? Where it was like, you know, and everything was fine from then on out, and right, it happened in waves, right? And I dare say it's continuing to happening. There was a time when I think there was enlightenment, right? And now it is that, and it is not that, right? The first initial experience I had was at 19 years old, right? But at that point, I was such a mess, right? It intervened. It changed everything. It transformed my entire life, right? In a heartbeat, right? And it really was just this transformation took place. But I had a very horrible childhood. I was completely dysfunctional. I was emotionally immature. Um, I didn't know how to live at all. So I had this enormous conflict between, on one side I'm talking to God, on the other side I can't tie my shoes, right? And that continued for a long time. And so throughout it, there were these punctuations, right, where it would simply become deeper. The understanding would permeate more. Um, and I'd reach a certain point. It was like, phoom, and then there was like this other vista would open up. So I can't, I don't even like to see it, say it as a point in time, because then everybody here is going, oh, I want to have my point in time. Well, you have, it's happening. It is not a moment. It is a theme playing itself out. Awakening is the only thing you have ever experienced. So in a sense, my experience is instructive, but it wasn't this definitive moment, right? It's been this ongoing thing, right? And at one point it was, just completely in the absolute, until the other side of the whole coin opened up, right? Like, I guess I consider myself kind of would have been called at the time, the term didn't exist, the neo-advaitist, right? There's nobody here, there's nothing to do. Felt really wonderful, but I couldn't ignore the fact that so many aspects of my life were just a total mess. I couldn't ignore it. So it is resolving the two of these that has kind of been the lifelong mission. And a friend of mine, Genpo Roshi, had the same experience of just living in the absolute for a while, and he said that one day he noticed that there were so many things in his life were just messed up. It's like he's a Zen master, right? And there's all these dysfunctions in his life, and he actually went to Hal and Sidra Stone, and for 8 years did therapy with them, did voice dialogue therapy, and out of that grew Big Mind and a very different approach to Zen, which I find very useful, and loved, did it myself with him. So I want you to instead to think of yourselves. You are awakened beings, rediscovering your own awakening. Right? You're not separate from that, and somehow having to regain it. It is what you are, and awakening, enlightenment, self-realization is an infinitely unfolding thing. It is the thousand-petaled lotus. It is the flower that never stops opening. So there's never end to the point where I say, this is what I am, right? That moment never happens. This is what I am. Oh, this is what I am. Oh, this is what I, oh, this is what I am. I am all of that, and I am none of that. So whenever I get that kind of question, I always kind of go, well, I could talk about the primary experience or experiences, but that doesn't really capture. So hopefully that's satisfying to you, KT, because I don't like this to being romanticized, right? I want to bring it back to you. I'm only interested in your awakening. As for the changes, right? Compassion, love, patience, wisdom, the incapacity to take a strong position on anything. Nothing bothers me. It's a shift in perception. Every moment has its value. There's no point to get to. Every moment has a beauty and a rareness about it. Everybody is innocent. Right? There are no perpetrators. Right? And love is the only real power in the universe. Love is the universe. So hopefully that satisfies you, KT. Crispin, IGP, hello, Crispin. Is physical healing possible? How? Yes, of course it is. Because the body is not what we think it is. Realize that the body is a flow and not an object, that it's never a fixed thing. And obviously, the potential for restoring flow to its natural function is obvious. I practiced spiritual healing for many, many years early in my experience, after my experience at 19. Um, and I just found that while it is possible, that it can also be distracting, right? It's the kind of thing where you just get yourself clear, get yourself space, completely allow whatever's happening to happen, and you have created the environment in which the flow can reestablish itself. At that point, you have to let go. It's not up to you to decide exactly how it's going to work out. There's no cut and dry thing. Did I get this result or not? Right? And and then once you let that go, it's a side effect. It's the wake on the boat. The Where the boat is going is to self-realization. The true self, there's nothing wrong with it. It needs no fixing. Right? It's perfection itself. It is the model by which the energy knows what's the natural way to flow and what isn't. Right? There has to be some kind of fundamental substance that defines the difference between health and sickness. Right? And how do we intuitively know that this is sick, this is healthy? Right? Because there is something that is in the eternal state of health. Find that, and it will establish health everywhere. And health and wealth, by the way, both arise from the same root word, which is weal, W-E-A-L, which simply means well-being. Right? They both arise from the same place. It's just the natural functioning of things. So find your natural self, the real you, and then there will inevitably arise the natural flow of energy, right? So don't make the physical result of a physical healing the object. Right? It's not the object. Right? The object is to know who you are. Physical healing happens as a consequence. And then it doesn't really matter to you whether it does or not. You just let life take its course, whatever it has to be. It isn't even important to whether the body's functioning anymore or not. It ceases to be important, and then healing can happen, right? Or not. It doesn't matter. When that's the emphasis, then that's your treasure. That's what's important to you, and it becomes more important than knowing who you are. Keep the focus on the most important thing, because the true knowledge of yourself is eternal. That's the place you never come back from. Right? Whereas any kind of healing, the body's going to go up and down, right? You're going to get a cold again. Right? Maybe you heal the cold, but we have to be clear that all we're doing is unblocking, restoring things to their natural flow, and then we let go and we let it do whatever it needs to do, and not try to determine it should be in this form. Robert, 2017, I had made so much stress for myself. All of a sudden, I was standing on a parking lot, thinking I'm losing my mind. First time observing myself. From there, everything changed. Oh, that's so beautiful. That's exactly what happened to Eckhart Tolle. You see, I just can't live with myself. Right? Because he just suffered interminably, just all sorts of for most of his life. And one day, I just can't live with myself. And suddenly, wait a minute. How many of us are there? Who's the I that can't live with this? And boom, it just all of a sudden became clear that self he couldn't live with wasn't him. That was his moment, which deepened over time, right? That was kind of the first domino that fell. So that's exactly it. I'm losing my mind. Wait a minute. Who's looking at the mind that's getting lost? Is that being lost? Not at all. Well, let's see. We seem to have run out of questions. People are saying thank you for giving me for not noticing that the sound went out, and uh, and thank you all for hanging in there with me. I eventually did notice. I eventually got down through the questions to the point. There is a super chat, but you have to pay, and don't pay to tell me that the sound is out. Oh dear. Uh, anyway, all right, everybody. I think I'm going to say goodbye now and get on with the rest of my day. Uh, so I will keep working on my technology to get it even better next time. Oh my goodness, this is something. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for thank you for wanting to know the truth. A lot of people don't. They want just confirmations of their beliefs. They don't want to actually know the truth. And that's the unconsciousness that you are no longer subject to. You do want to know. And for that, I just have the utmost respect and honor for you. Because it's rare. It is indeed rare. And opportunities like this are indeed rare. So, thank you all for being here. Love you. Namaste.